No one ever expects betrayal to come from the very person they trust the most. Ava Morrison once believed she had the perfect life, a successful husband, Trevor Morrison, and an opulent mansion in the hills overlooking Los Angeles. But when Trevor's secret love affair came to light, her dream world crumbled into ashes. Heartbroken and humiliated, Ava rebuilt her life from scratch, only to find an even greater fortune with James Hamilton, a self-made millionaire CEO. Now, Trevor is back, on his knees, pleading for forgiveness. Will Ava risk the life she's painstakingly pieced together, or is it already too late? Ava Morrison always had an eye for the finer things in life. Growing up in a small suburban neighborhood in Glendale, she dreamed of living a life of luxury private chauffeurs, designer gowns, and extravagant galas at high-end hotels. When she met Trevor Morrison during her final year in college at UCLA, she thought she'd found her golden ticket to a glamorous world. Trevor was older, charming, and already making waves in the tech startup scene. Their whirlwind romance led to a lavish wedding at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Los Angeles, complete with a guest list of rising entrepreneurs and society elites. From the outside, Ava's life glimmered like diamonds. Trevor's company, Fluxion Software, took off in record time. He soared into the ranks of millionaire entrepreneurs, and Ava was right by his side, reveling in the attention. Their first home was a modern architectural marvel perched in the Hollywood Hills, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered breathtaking views of the city lights. Yet behind the glamour, Ava always had a persistent sense of unease. Perhaps it was the silent phone calls Trevor took at odd hours, or the intangible tension whenever she brought up starting a family. Deep down, she sensed that Trevor held a secret one he guarded fiercely. That secret exploded one grey November morning. Ava remembered it vividly. She was browsing the local Glendale news on her iPad when a text arrived on Trevor's phone, lying on the kitchen counter. The message read, "I miss last night already. Can't wait to see you again, L." Ava's heart pounded as she scrolled through the conversation. There were photos, explicit confessions of love, and plans for secret getaways in private villas off the coast of Italy. Everything became a blur as her eyes teared up. All the whispered doubts, the unsatisfactory answers, the late-night phone calls, every suspicion was confirmed in a matter of minutes. When Trevor walked into the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, he saw the phone in Ava's trembling grip. He knew immediately that the facade had shattered. Ava dropped the phone on the floor and stepped away, arms wrapped around herself in self-protection. Trevor tried to explain, apologizing profusely, making excuses about stress, claiming the affair was a moment of weakness, but Ava couldn't stand to hear another syllable. In a moment of raw devastation and fury, she threw the mug across the room, shattering it into pieces, a perfect metaphor for their broken marriage. Within days, Ava filed for divorce. Despite Trevor's half-hearted apologies and empty gestures, she decided enough was enough. She sought refuge at her friend Sarah Johnson's condo, a longtime confidant who had grown up with Ava in Glendale. Sarah had always been suspicious of Trevor's flamboyance and suspected deeper cracks in their relationship. Though the divorce would become messy, Ava stood resolute. She refused to let Trevor's betrayal define her future. For her, it was the end of one life and the reluctant beginning of another, an uncertain path rife with pain, but also with new possibilities she had yet to discover. The days following her discovery were a chaotic whirlwind. Lawyers called non-stop, paparazzi circled the gates of the Hollywood Hills mansion, and gossip columns thrived on the scandal. Ava had become the talk of social media, with every rumor spinning a new web of lies. Some claimed she had cheated first, others said She married Trevor for his money and was now walking away with half of his fortune. Every rumor stung, but none hurt as much as the truth she already knew. Trevor had betrayed her trust, and she would never again be the same woman she'd been before. Ava checked into the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills temporarily, but she soon realized that living out of a suitcase in a high-end suite did little to ease the heartbreak. As plush and sophisticated as the suite was, every corner reminded her of the luxury she once shared with Trevor. The thought tormented her, making it impossible to find any sense of peace. When Sarah Johnson insisted Ava stay at her condo in Glendale, Ava jumped at the offer. She found solace in her childhood friends' warm hugs and unwavering support. It was the down-to-earth environment she desperately needed to heal. During this tumultuous period, Ava learned who her true friends were. Many in Trevor's elite circle ghosted her, unwilling to compromise their ties with the rising tech star. Only a handful, including Sarah and a few former college classmates, stood by her side. In their late-night conversations over cheap wine and microwave pizza, Ava confronted her swirling emotions: heartbreak, anger, disappointment, and an odd sense of liberation she never expected to feel. For so long, her identity was tied to Trevor's achievements. Now that he was out of the picture, she started asking herself who she wanted to be. Ava sought therapy to help navigate the overwhelming sense of loss. The sessions were emotionally draining, yet illuminating. She realized that her entire marriage had revolved around Trevor's ambitions, leaving her own dreams overlooked. Now, she was faced with a blank canvas. As she poured out her emotions, the therapist asked a simple but profound question: "What do you want for yourself, Ava?" She had no immediate answer, which frightened her, but it also stirred something new, a desire to explore her own path. Among the debris of her former life, Ava found an unlikely treasure: her old diary from college. In it, she'd scribbled career goals, ideas for a startup, even the name of a non-profit she'd dreamed of founding. Turning those dreams into reality was the only way to reclaim her sense of purpose. With Sarah's encouragement, Ava began to put together a business plan. She envisioned a lifestyle brand focused on empowering women, offering workshops, online courses, and motivational content that championed self-worth over social status. It wasn't a fully formed idea yet, but it was a start. For the first time in weeks, Ava felt a glimmer of hope. Broken though she was still alive, still capable, and still determined to rise above the wreckage. Little did she know that fate had more in store for her than she could ever imagine. Ava's passion project took her all over Los Angeles, from cramped co-working spaces in downtown to high-profile networking events on the West Side. She often went to these events, feeling like an outsider, a divorcee whose primary claim to fame was her ex-husband's scandal. Nonetheless, she persisted, passing out homemade business cards with the name of her budding lifestyle brand, Avenir. She pitched her vision to anyone who would listen, determined to prove she was more than just the ex-wife of a tech mogul. It was at one such networking gala, hosted at the iconic Beverly Wilshire Hotel, that she first crossed paths with James Hamilton. Tall, confident, and impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, James had an aura that commanded attention without him even trying. Ava noticed him from across the room, deep in conversation with a group of investors. The rumor mill said he was the CEO of Hamilton Innovations, a conglomerate spanning biotech, renewable energy, and consumer electronics. His name often appeared in Forbes for philanthropic ventures, like funding clean water initiatives in South America. Intrigued but intimidated, Ava stayed in her corner, sipping her champagne nervously. Fate seemed to intervene when a mutual acquaintance, Carmen Velasquez, an executive at a philanthropic foundation, introduced Ava to James. She found herself momentarily tongue-tied in his presence, but James's warm smile quickly put her at ease. They talked about her fledgling business, Avenir, and he listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about her goals and target audience. There was something disarming about how he treated her with genuine respect. He showed no sign of judgment, no hint that he recognized her from tabloid headlines. The night progressed, and they found themselves repeatedly drawn into each other's orbit. Every few minutes, James would glance in Ava's direction, and she'd feel a surge of electrifying curiosity. It had been months since she'd allowed herself to even consider romantic possibilities. Her heart was still healing, and she feared being perceived as vulnerable prey for another wealthy man. Yet, James seemed different, grounded, open, and considerate. Near the end of the evening, as guests started to trickle out, James approached Ava at the bar. With a friendly grin, he handed her a business card made of sleek black metal. "I'd love to hear more about Avenir," he said in a deep, calm voice. "There's an upcoming social entrepreneurship summit in San Francisco. I think your vision could resonate well there, and I'd be happy to help you secure a spot." Ava felt her heart flutter. This was more than a business proposition. It felt like an invitation to step into a new realm of possibility. She took the card and thanked him, her mind already buzzing with excitement and a glimmer of cautious hope. As James walked away, she couldn't help but notice the sense of confidence in his stride. It was the confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was and never needed to prove it to anyone. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. For the first time since her divorce, she felt something akin to optimism about the future and about letting someone into her life again. Over the next few weeks, Ava threw herself into preparing her pitch for the Social Entrepreneurship Summit James had mentioned. True to his word, James facilitated an introduction to the event organizers, praising Avenir's potential for empowering women to embrace their true worth. Meanwhile, late-night emails and phone calls between Ava and James became more frequent. They reviewed her business plan, discussed branding ideas, and brainstormed how to make Avenir stand out in a crowded market. In one particular late-night call, Ava realized their conversations had shifted away from strictly business. James inquired about her personal well-being, her emotional scars, and her dreams beyond Avenir. She opened up about the divorce, her fears of public judgment, and the loneliness that sometimes crept in despite her success. Far from recoiling, James listened without pity or judgment. He even shared some of his own challenges in founding Hamilton Innovations, how early investors doubted him, how he faced betrayal from a partner who tried to steal company secrets, and how those struggles shaped him into a stronger, more empathetic leader. Each conversation with James peeled back another layer of vulnerability, forging a connection that neither had anticipated. They discovered a mutual love for travel, particularly the Tuscan countryside in Italy. They both had a penchant for philanthropic causes and believed that wealth had to be balanced with responsibility. An unspoken attraction brewed beneath each word exchanged, but both hesitated to label it. After all, Ava was still healing, and James had a reputation to protect. When the Social Entrepreneurship Summit finally arrived, it took place in a sprawling conference hall overlooking the San Francisco Bay. Ava stood on stage, heart pounding, as she presented Avenir to a room full of influential investors, CEOs, and media representatives. Her voice quivered at first, but she soon found her stride, driven by her passion to help women reclaim their sense of worth. Her pitch was a resounding success, earning applause and multiple invitations for follow-up meetings. After her presentation, James led Ava to a quiet balcony where they could watch the sun set behind the Golden Gate Bridge. The orange and pink hues of the sky mirrored the warmth in Ava's chest. She was exhilarated from her victory and equally excited to share the moment with James. They talked about potential collaborations like a charitable partnership between Avenir and one of Hamilton Innovations' community outreach programs. But as the sun dipped lower, the conversation turned personal once more. James hesitated for a moment, looking out at the water. Then he turned to her, eyes sincere. "I'd like to see you beyond these business dealings," he admitted. "I realize this might be complicated, and I don't want to rush you. But I'm drawn to you, Ava, for more reasons than just Avenir." Ava's heart fluttered. She felt the weight of her past Trevor's betrayal, the public scrutiny bearing down on her. Yet, gazing into James's earnest eyes, she sensed a rare genuineness. Maybe it was time to take a risk on someone who saw her as more than a trophy wife. With a timid yet hopeful smile, she replied, "I'd like that too." Ava woke up one morning to find her phone buzzing incessantly with social media notifications, news alerts, and text messages. As she scrolled through the headlines, she saw her own face staring back at her from gossip blogs and local online magazines. The stories seemed fixated on a single theme, from divorced socialite to rising entrepreneur. A host of late-night talk shows had begun reviving the details of her messy divorce from Trevor Morrison, stirring up rumors and half-truths. One YouTube commentator, with over 1 million followers, even aired a video dissecting Ava's personal life, hinting that she was just another gold digger who had hopped from one millionaire to the next. Sighing, Ava placed her phone face down on the kitchen island. She couldn't deny that the media coverage boosted visibility for her new venture. Avenir, but at what cost? Each mention of Trevor's name in those articles brought a fresh pang of unease, a reminder of the betrayal that had upended her world. And now that her relationship with James Hamilton was becoming public knowledge, the press was fixated on painting a salacious narrative, the scorned ex-wife cashing in on another wealthy man. Still, Ava tried to focus on the positives. Avenir was gaining traction, and her schedule had grown busier by the day. She traveled to New York for a women's leadership summit, delivered a keynote speech in Chicago about personal branding after divorce, and was even invited to an exclusive roundtable in Washington, D.C. on female entrepreneurship. Everywhere she went, James often joined her, offering not just emotional support, but also connecting her to individuals in his vast business network. Their relationship blossomed in these shared moments. An impromptu dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Napa, a playful stroll through Central Park between meetings, and cozy evenings reviewing philanthropic proposals in James's gleaming penthouse. Yet despite her outward success and her deepening bond with James, Ava couldn't shake the nagging sense that Trevor was lurking in the shadows. It started innocently enough with text messages that appeared out of nowhere. Late at night, her phone would ping, revealing a short paragraph drenched in contrition. "I'm so sorry, Ava. I messed everything up. Please give me a chance to make it right." Other times, the tone was hostile, dripping with resentment. "So you've moved on to a bigger fish, huh? Enjoy the spotlight while it lasts." Each message sparked memories she would have preferred to leave buried. She tried not to let it show, but the emotional toll was significant. Ava found herself struggling to concentrate in meetings, her mind drifting to thoughts of Trevor. In the quiet hours of early morning, she sometimes replayed the moment she discovered his infidelity, remembering the white-hot betrayal that set her on this new path. Though she had worked hard to forge a new identity and reclaim her sense of self-worth, it seemed the past refused to let go so easily. One afternoon, her longtime friend, Sarah Johnson, arrived at Ava's Glendale condo, arms loaded with Thai takeout and a sympathetic smile. Before Sarah even spoke, she shot Ava a look that said, "I know you're not okay." They settled on the living room rug, surrounded by boxes of pad thai and green curry. "You have every right to ignore Trevor," Sarah said between bites of spring roll. "He's the one who ruined your marriage. It's not your responsibility to take care of his guilt." Ava nodded, a lump in her throat. I know, she whispered, but he's not just some random ex. I loved him. And sometimes I wonder if there's a part of him that truly regrets what he did, or if this is all just another manipulation. Sarah reached out to squeeze Ava's hand. Believe me, I understand, but you have to remember how far you've come. You're stronger now. Don't let him dismantle that. Despite Sarah's reassurance, the tension escalated in ways Ava could never have predicted. A week later, Avenir hosted a public panel discussion on women's empowerment at a trendy co-working space in downtown Los Angeles. The evening kicked off with inspirational talks by prominent female CEOs, non-profit leaders, and social workers specializing in helping abuse survivors. As Ava stood near the podium, graciously welcoming each guest, she suddenly felt a peculiar chill crawl up her spine. Scanning the room, her heart plummeted at the sight of a familiar figure by the entrance, Trevor Morrison, dressed in a crisp grey suit that seemed to hang loose on him. He appeared thinner than she remembered, his eyes scanning the crowd until they locked onto her own. A cocktail of dread and anger churned in her stomach, yet she forced herself to remain calm, offering polite smiles to everyone who passed by. Eventually, she excused herself from a conversation and discreetly made her way to Trevor, who wore a strained smile that failed to hide the desperation in his gaze. "Ava, we need to talk," he said quietly, though his tone bordered on pleading. "This isn't the place for that," she interjected, holding up a hand. A nerve hammered in her temple, and she fought to keep her voice steady. "Whatever you have to say, we can do it another time." Trevor's expression twisted from contrition to frustration. "Why not now?" "I came to apologize, to tell you how sorry I am for everything I did. I just want a chance to apologize," Ava echoed, incredulity lacing her voice. Part of her wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. "You sued me for defamation, Trevor, and now you show up here at an event about female empowerment, expecting what redemption?" His lips pressed into a tight line. He glanced around, perhaps noticing the curious glances from nearby attendees. Lowering his voice, he muttered, "I still care about you. I messed up, but I can't just let you waltz off with another guy without." "Stop," Ava hissed, feeling the heat of anger flare in her chest. "You lost any claim over me the day you betrayed our marriage. I don't want a scene, so please leave." Trevor inhaled sharply, rage sparking in his eyes. "So, that's how it is? You think you're better off without me? You'll come crawling back when you realize Hamilton's just another vulture." Before she could respond, he brushed past her, heading for the exit with stiff shoulders. It took every ounce of self-control for Ava to maintain her composure. A few onlookers shot questioning glances, but she simply waved them off with a forced smile. Inside, a tempest raged humiliation, anger, and a creeping sense of doubt. After the panel concluded, Ava lingered behind to help with cleanup, hoping the menial tasks would calm her nerves. She gathered pamphlets, folded chairs, and offered quick thank yous to volunteers. But her thoughts were consumed by Trevor's parting words. Could James Hamilton really be another vulture? The logical side of her said no. James had shown her nothing but kindness and respect. He had invested in Avenir, not for profit, but because he believed in her mission. And yet, the wounds Trevor left made her guard her heart, as though anticipating the next betrayal. When she finally locked up the venue, she slipped into the back seat of a black sedan that James had arranged to pick her up. Leaning against the cool leather, she stared out at the neon-lit streets, her mind churning. She reminded herself that she wasn't the same naive woman she'd been before. She was building something meaningful, forging relationships on her own terms. Trevor's sudden reappearance felt like a dark shadow creeping over her newfound light, but she refused to let it devour her. Back at her Glendale condo, Ava exhaled a long, weary breath. She decided to call James and recount the evening's events, omitting none of her frustrations or lingering anxieties. His steady, empathetic voice on the other end of the line brought her a measure of peace. He reassured her that Trevor's desperate words were nothing more than the last gasps of a man who hated seeing her thrive. As she hung up, Ava realized that perhaps Sarah was right. Trevor might always have a way of getting under her skin, but it was up to her to decide how much power he truly held. Slowly but surely, she was learning to stand firm, to let her heart guide her with caution, yet not barricade it entirely. She would keep building Avenir, keep loving James on her own terms, and keep reminding herself that her worth was far more than any label a tabloid could print. Yes, Trevor was a ghost that lingered, but Ava had made up her mind she would not be haunted forever. She had worked too hard to reclaim her identity, and no spectre from her past was going to stand in her way now. As the weeks rolled into months, Ava and James's relationship deepened in ways that surprised them both. Simple, everyday activities became cornerstones of their bond, like cooking dinner together in Ava's modest Glendale condo. Despite James's luxurious penthouse, he relished the normalcy of chopping vegetables on her small granite countertop and sipping wine while they laughed about the day's events. Ava discovered James's playful side when they attempted a complicated French recipe and ended up ordering pizza instead. On weekends, they often drove up the coast to Santa Barbara. They would stroll along the shoreline, barefoot on the sand, discussing their visions for a better world. James shared his dream of establishing a cutting-edge research institute for renewable energy, while Ava confided her ambition to take Avenir global, offering online programs in multiple languages. These dreams, once fleeting thoughts, began to crystallize into tangible plans as their mutual support fueled each other's aspirations. Gradually, Ava felt safe enough to share the darkest corners of her past. She recounted the humiliating moment she discovered Trevor's affair, the endless nights she spent crying on Sarah's couch, and the crippling anxiety she still fought whenever she saw a paparazzi camera flash. In return, James opened up about the pressure he felt from shareholders and the media, how it sometimes caused him insomnia and made him question whether he was truly cut out for success at such a massive scale. Their honesty brought them closer. Each vulnerability revealed a deeper layer of respect and affection. One crisp autumn night, under the glow of patio lights on James's balcony, he asked Ava to officially move in with him. She hesitated, worried that she was leaping into yet another serious relationship too quickly. But James reassured her that there was no rush. "I want you in my life in every possible way," he said softly, holding her hands in his. "But I also want you to feel fully comfortable and in control of your choices." Ava smiled, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. She didn't move in immediately, but she appreciated that James respected her boundaries. Instead, they found a middle ground. Ava spent several nights a week at James's penthouse, and sometimes James joined her in Glendale. Their world became a tapestry of business deals, philanthropic engagements, and quiet, intimate moments that healed old wounds and nurtured new love. During this time, Avenir reached new heights. A major women's magazine featured Ava in a cover story titled "From Betrayal to Breakthrough," catapulting her into the spotlight as a beacon of resilience. Though some critics accused her of leveraging her divorce for publicity, many more were inspired by her message. Enrollments soared, sponsors reached out, and partnerships blossomed. Through it all, James stood proudly by her side, encouraging her to dream even bigger. Life felt like a delicate balancing act between challenges and triumphs, heartbreak and hope. For now, Ava embraced the blessings of each new day, content to move forward at her own pace. Little did she know that Trevor Morrison's looming presence was far from vanquished, and that fate had yet another twist in store for her. While Ava's star was on the rise, Trevor Morrison's fortunes took a turn for the worse. Rumors circulated in Silicon Valley about a failed product launch at Fluxion Software, one that cost the company millions in lost R&D. The fiasco was rooted in an overly ambitious expansion into artificial intelligence without adequate testing. Investors began to lose faith. Company stock plunged, and Trevor's image as an innovative tech guru was replaced by whispers that he'd become too reckless, blinded by his own hype. At the same time, the media painted a less than rosy picture of his personal life. The woman he had cheated with, identified only as Elle, had apparently moved on, leaving Trevor in the lurch. One particularly damning article in Tech Today included quotes from former employees who claimed Trevor was moody and detached, often snapping at staff or missing important meetings. Some speculated he was spiraling into depression. Others said his ego simply couldn't handle being overshadowed by new competitors. None of this escaped Ava's notice, but she tried not to dwell on Trevor's downfall. She still remembered the man's betrayal too vividly to muster any sympathy. Yet, her resolve faltered when Trevor unexpectedly reached out one evening. The phone rang as she was working late at her Glendale condo, finalizing an Avenir workshop schedule. His name flashed on the caller ID, sending a shiver of unease down her spine. She let it go to voicemail, but the message he left was unsettling. In a shaky voice, Trevor pleaded for a chance to talk, insisting he was in a very dark place and that she was the only person who could understand him. He sounded distraught, far from the cocky entrepreneur she once knew. Conflicted, Ava deliberated for days. Part of her wanted to block him permanently, but another part, the empathic side that remembered their history, felt compelled to at least hear him out. Ultimately, she decided to delete the voicemail without responding. Trevor, however, was not so easily dissuaded. He began sending roses to Ava's Glendale address, accompanied by handwritten notes of apology and desperation. The notes ranged from sad remorse to borderline obsessive declarations of love. Alarmed, Ava confided in Sarah Johnson, who advised her to get a restraining order if Trevor's behavior escalated. But Ava hesitated, still unsure if Trevor was truly unstable or merely grasping at straws in a desperate attempt to salvage his pride. Then, one Saturday morning, a courier delivered a large, manila envelope to Ava's condo. Inside were legal documents. Trevor was suing her, claiming that her statements about his affair and her portrayal of him as an unfaithful husband had caused him irreparable harm and contributed to Fluxion Software's declining stock. He demanded an apology and financial compensation for defamation. Ava stared at the papers in disbelief, her emotions ricocheting between anger and dismay. Trevor had stooped to a new low. This was no longer the man she'd shared a life with. This was a cornered adversary lashing out. She immediately called her lawyer, determined to fight back and protect her newfound success and dignity. Little did she know that this legal showdown would unearth secrets about Trevor that would shake her to her core and lead her to a confrontation. She never imagined the defamation lawsuit thrust Ava into a tumultuous legal storm. Her lawyer, Natalie Rivers, was a seasoned litigator known for her fierce advocacy. "We'll counter-sue if we need to," Natalie said resolutely, scanning through the documents in her sleek downtown Los Angeles office. "But first, let's gather all the facts and build a solid defense. I'm confident we can prove that your statements about Trevor's infidelity were based on truth, not malicious falsehood." Ava sat in a plush leather chair, her mind racing. She provided copies of every text message, every tabloid article, and every piece of evidence that corroborated Trevor's affair. She also showed Natalie the threatening notes Trevor had sent under the guise of apologies. Ava felt a surge of relief when Natalie assured her they had a robust case. News of the lawsuit caught fire on social media. Many fans of Avenir expressed outrage that Trevor would stoop so low, while some critics argued that Ava had used the scandal to boost her own platform. The public debate only intensified when Trevor, in a misguided PR move, appeared on a talk show to tell his side of the story. He implied that Ava had exaggerated his infidelity for personal gain, painting himself as a victim of her revenge crusade. While preparing for trial, Ava discovered something even more unsettling. Through mutual contacts in the tech world, she heard whispers that Trevor had embezzled funds from Fluxion Software to cover personal debts, possibly even to finance lavish gifts for his mistress. A former Fluxion employee named Tyler Tran came forward anonymously, claiming he witnessed suspicious wire transfers that Trevor authorized without proper documentation. If these allegations were true, Trevor was in far deeper trouble than a mere defamation lawsuit. James Hamilton, steadfast in his support, encouraged Ava to pursue the truth. "Don't let him bully you," he told her, gently squeezing her hand as they sat in his penthouse. "He's taking advantage of your compassion, but you're stronger than this." James even offered to connect Ava's legal team with forensic accountants who could help track the questionable transactions. Ava, however, worried about dragging James further into her personal battles. Yet his unwavering devotion gave her the courage she needed to press on. As the court date approached, Trevor's lawyer tried to negotiate a settlement, but only on the condition that Ava publicly retract her statements and cease mentioning Trevor altogether. She refused. She would not lie to protect Trevor's already tarnished reputation. A line had been crossed, and she was determined to stand her ground. Days before the trial, Tyler Tran provided a trove of documents to Ava's legal team. The records showed clear evidence of financial misconduct on Trevor's part, including multiple backdated invoices and shell companies funneled with Fluxion's capital. This evidence not only discredited Trevor's lawsuit, it opened the door to possible criminal charges against him. Despite the emotional toll and the massive legal fees, Ava felt a sense of vindication. No longer was she merely defending her name, she was uncovering the full extent of Trevor's deceit and corruption. Though the journey was painful, it was also clarifying. She was no longer a victim. She was a fighter, ready to protect her new life and ensure that Trevor couldn't harm anyone else the way he had harmed her. The day of the trial arrived with unsettling tension. Cameras flashed outside the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles as Ava stepped out of a black SUV, flanked by Natalie Rivers and two other associates from the law firm. Dressed in a sleek navy suit, Ava tried to maintain a calm demeanor, though her heart pounded like a drumline in her chest. On the opposite side, Trevor strode in with his own legal team, his face set in a grim mask. He appeared thinner and more haggard than before, a shadow of his former confident self. Inside the courtroom, the proceedings started with opening statements. Trevor's lawyer reiterated their claim Ava had fabricated or exaggerated the details of his infidelity for publicity, causing his reputation and Fluxion Software's value to plummet. Natalie countered with a sharp rebuttal, stating that Ava's statements were true, backed by concrete evidence, and thus not defamatory. She also hinted at the financial misconduct that would soon surface in their defense. One by one, witnesses took the stand. Sarah Johnson testified about the emotional turmoil Ava experienced upon discovering Trevor's affair, providing unfiltered insights into how the betrayal impacted Ava's mental state. Digital forensics experts confirmed the authenticity of text messages and emails that documented Trevor's involvement with another woman. The turning point came when Tyler Tran, deciding to drop his anonymity, took the stand with copies of incriminating bank statements and internal memos. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as Tyler displayed documents showing how Trevor allegedly moved company funds into his personal accounts. Some transactions coincided with extravagant purchases, luxury vacations, designer jewelry, and unexplained cash withdrawals. Under cross-examination, Trevor's lawyer tried to discredit Tyler by suggesting he held a grudge against Fluxion, but Tyler's calm demeanor and impeccable records left little doubt about the veracity of his claims. Trevor's eyes flickered with desperation. He shifted uneasily, tugging at his tie as the evidence mounted against him. At one point, he took the stand to defend himself. In a trembling voice, he insisted that Ava had orchestrated a smear campaign, but his composure unraveled under Natalie's incisive questions. She cornered him about specific transactions, the timeline of his affair, and contradictory statements he'd made to the media. By the time he stepped down, it was clear that his accusations against Ava held no weight. The final blow came when Trevor's own CFO from Fluxion testified that he had repeatedly warned Trevor about unsanctioned transfers. The CFO revealed that Trevor had ignored these cautions, choosing instead to proceed with risky financial dealings and personal indulgences. This testimony demolished any remaining credibility Trevor had in the eyes of the court. By the end of the trial, the evidence overwhelmingly favored Ava. The judge dismissed Trevor's defamation suit, calling it frivolous and vexatious, and suggested that criminal investigations into Trevor's financial dealings might be warranted. As Ava stood outside the courthouse, cameras clicking and reporters shouting questions, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was over, or so she thought. In the wake of his courtroom defeat, Trevor vanished from public view. Reports circulated that he'd fled Los Angeles, perhaps to a remote vacation home or even out of the country. Social media buzzed with speculation. Some claimed he was plotting a comeback. Others whispered about a pending arrest for fraud. Ava, meanwhile, tried to move on. She refocused on Avenir, channeling her renewed sense of purpose into organizing workshops that offered practical skills like negotiation tactics, financial literacy, and emotional resilience to women starting over after traumatic relationships. James stood by her, more supportive than ever. In a heartwarming surprise, he organized a celebratory dinner at the Chateau Marmont to toast Ava's legal victory. Friends, collaborators, and even some new supporters from the women's empowerment community gathered to applaud her courage. Toasts were made, tears were shed, and Ava felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years. But beneath the surface, Ava couldn't entirely quell her anxiety. She'd learned through a private investigator hired by her lawyers that the district attorney's office was actively examining Fluxion's finances. An arrest warrant for Trevor seemed imminent. As she sat in the back seat of James's car one evening, watching the city lights blur by, Ava admitted her unease. "He won't go down quietly," she said, her voice trembling. "I know Trevor. He'll pull one final stunt." James squeezed her hand reassuringly, but his eyes were clouded with concern. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The very next day, Ava's fears materialized. She was about to step into a meeting at Avenir's new Beverly Hills office when she got a frantic phone call from Sarah Johnson. In a trembling voice, Sarah revealed that Trevor had shown up at her condo, demanding to see Ava. He threatened to expose something that would ruin her life and business if Ava didn't meet him personally. Panic spread through Ava's chest. She rushed to Sarah's place, mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When she arrived, she found Trevor pacing the sidewalk outside, a haunted look in his eyes. "Thank God you came," he said, voice cracking. "I'm desperate, Ava." Ava drew a shaky breath. "What do you want, Trevor?" His gaze darted left and right, as though he expected the police to leap out from the bushes at any moment. "I know you hate me," he began, voice trembling, "but I need your help. They're going to arrest me. My accounts are frozen. I have nowhere to go, no one to turn to. Please, can we talk somewhere private?" Ava's instincts screamed for her to walk away, But something in Trevor's plea tugged at her heartstrings, an echo of the man she once loved. Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him at a public cafe the next day, on the condition that he leave Sarah alone. As he slunk away, shoulders hunched in defeat, Ava felt a knot of dread in her stomach. She was stepping into dangerous territory by entertaining Trevor's request, but she had to ensure he wouldn't harm anyone else or sabotage the life she'd built for herself. Little did she know that this confrontation would lead to a moment of reckoning far more explosive than anything she could have imagined. Ava chose a bustling cafe in West Hollywood for her meeting with Trevor, a place with enough witnesses to discourage any erratic behavior on his part. She arrived early, anxiety gripping her. Sipping on a latte, she tried to mentally prepare for whatever bombshell Trevor might drop. When he walked in, she almost didn't recognize him. His usually impeccable suit was replaced by a rumpled jacket, and dark circles under his eyes made him appear older. He sat down without a word, glancing nervously at the other patrons. Finally, he looked at her. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice subdued. Ava folded her arms. "Make it quick, Trevor. I don't have much time." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm done for," he admitted. "The Da is building a case. Fluxion is on the brink of bankruptcy. I have no assets left. Everything is tied up or frozen. I need money to escape this nightmare." Ava stared at him, incredulous. "Are you seriously asking me for money? After you sued me for defamation? After what you put me through?" He leaned forward, desperation etched on his face. "I know it's insane, but I'm out of options. If you help me disappear, I'll stay out of your life forever, and I won't reveal what I know about your new relationship." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you think you have on me? This is extortion, Trevor." Trevor hesitated, then lowered his voice. "I know about James's past. There's a lawsuit pending in Europe against Hamilton. Innovation, something about patent infringements. If that comes to light, it could damage his reputation and cripple his company. And if he goes down, you go down with him." Ava felt a cold chill creep up her spine. James had mentioned ongoing legal battles overseas, but he'd assured her they were frivolous claims with no real merit. Still, the threat of a scandal was not something she took lightly. She glared at Trevor. "You're bluffing. You don't know anything concrete." He let out a mirthless chuckle. "I have correspondences, emails from a whistleblower in Hamilton's European division. I got them through an old contact in the investor circuit. They claim James might have knowingly used a patented technology without proper licensing. If that goes public, James could face criminal charges in some countries. And you, the face of Avenir, lose your golden CEO husband." Ava's stomach churned. Part of her believed James was above such wrongdoing, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. "Why are you doing this?" Trevor's gaze hardened. "Because I'm cornered, and I won't go to prison without a fight." Ava's mind reeled. She thought of James, the man who'd stood by her, whose integrity she believed in with all her heart. Could he have made a grave mistake early in his career? And even if he had, did that justify paying Trevor off? Her initial anger bubbled into raw fury. She rose from her seat, shaking her head. "I'm not giving you a dime," she spat. "If you want to drag us all down, do it. But don't expect me to become your accomplice." Trevor's eyes flared with panic. He reached out, but she yanked her arm away. "Ava, please," she stormed out, leaving Trevor at the table, alone and frantic. Outside, she leaned against a street lamp, her heart pounding. She needed to talk to James, and she needed the truth now. That evening, Ava confronted James in his penthouse, her emotions tangled in a knot of anxiety and betrayal. She recounted Trevor's threats, watching James's face grow grim. "He claims to have emails implicating you in a patent scandal in Europe," Ava said, her voice trembling. "Is any of it true?" James sat quietly for a moment, then looked her in the eyes. "Years ago, When Hamilton Innovations was still in its infancy, I partnered with a research team in Germany. One of our prototypes did use technology whose patent rights were, at the time, unclear. When we found out, we tried to rectify it by paying for licensing, but the patent holder argued that we'd already marketed the prototype. It's been an ongoing legal dispute. My lawyers insist we'll win, but there's always a risk of negative publicity. Trevor must have gotten his hands on internal documents. He's blowing it out of proportion. Relief washed over Ava, mingled with lingering apprehension. She believed James he was too forthright to hide a major criminal offense. Still, the potential fallout could be significant, especially with Trevor stirring the pot. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We face it head on," James said, taking her hand. "I won't let Trevor blackmail us. My legal team will handle the patent suit. As for Trevor's threats, we inform the authorities. He's already under investigation for embezzlement. Any attempt to use these documents for extortion will only further incriminate him." Ava nodded, a sense of calm returning. Together, they decided to bring everything to the DA's attention, including Trevor's recent attempts at blackmail. Days later, police tracked Trevor to a seedy motel near the Mexican border. News reports claimed he was found with fake passports and a laptop containing sensitive corporate data. The authorities arrested him on multiple charges: embezzlement, fraud, and extortion. Fluxion Software soon declared bankruptcy, its assets seized to repay defrauded investors. The scandal rocked the business world, but for Ava, it brought closure. She no longer needed to fear Trevor's vengeance. She focused on expanding Avenir, opening a new office in New York, and rolling out an online platform that reached women worldwide. James resolved his patent dispute through a quiet settlement, paying a sizable fee but avoiding criminal charges. Though the media made some noise, James's stellar reputation and philanthropic record shielded him from lasting damage. Amid the chaos, a deeper bond blossomed between Ava and James. They'd weathered storms together, sharing victories and defeats, forging a trust that neither had experienced before. On a crisp winter evening, James invited Ava to a private dinner on the rooftop of his penthouse. Under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights and the Los Angeles skyline, he dropped to one knee. In his hand was a simple, elegant ring, a promise of partnership built on honesty and respect. Tears welled in Ava's eyes as she whispered her answer: "Yes!" The wedding took place 6 months later in a charming vineyard in Napa Valley. Friends and family gathered under the Californian sun, toasting the couple's union. Even Sarah Johnson shed a tear or two, declaring she'd never seen Ava so radiant. This time, Ava walked down the aisle to a future she embraced with clear eyes and an open heart. In the months following Trevor's arrest, the media's curiosity regarding Ava's newfound happiness and her dynamic with James Hamilton reached a fever pitch. Paparazzi camped outside their Beverly Hills office, hoping for even the smallest glimpse of the power couple. Yet, unlike the sensational controversies of her past, Ava now found herself in the spotlight for all the right reasons. Avenir began hosting weekly seminars aimed at helping women rebuild their lives after betrayal, an initiative that received overwhelming support from local communities and global philanthropists alike. Buoyed by the success of these programs, Ava poured her heart into founding the Rise Again Fund, a charitable trust that offered grants, legal aid, and mental health resources to women blindsided by divorce, financial deceit, or domestic strife. The fund's launch gala at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel drew high-profile guests and celebrity endorsements, raising millions in a single night. Moved by the generosity, Ava announced her intention to expand the fund's reach beyond Los Angeles, beginning with satellite programs in Chicago, New York, and even a pilot project in London. She believed every woman, no matter her zip code, deserved the tools and support to rebuild from the ashes. Although she reveled in these achievements, Ava remained humble. She never forgot the humiliation she felt the day she discovered Trevor's affair, the heartbreak that followed, and the crippling self-doubt she had wrestled with. Through therapy and the unwavering love of James, and the steadfast friendship of Sarah Johnson, she learned that her experiences could serve as a powerful catalyst for positive change. The tears she once wept in private had become the backbone of her empathy, fueling a vision of empowerment for those who felt voiceless and unseen. James, too, found renewed purpose. Despite settling the patent dispute in Europe, he emerged from the legal ordeal with a clearer mission for Hamilton Innovations to ensure complete transparency and uncompromising ethics in every venture. Together, Ava and James embarked on philanthropic visits across the globe supporting clean water projects in South America, championing women-led tech startups in Southeast Asia, and sponsoring education programs for underprivileged youth in Eastern Europe. Their partnership transcended romance, evolving into a shared calling to uplift the lives of others. Amid these developments, Trevor Morrison's name gradually faded into the annals of scandal, overshadowed by more recent financial misdeeds in Silicon Valley. Fluxion Software ceased operations. Former employees found jobs elsewhere, carrying cautionary tales of misplaced ambition and moral compromise. There were rumors that Trevor was cooperating with authorities, desperate to reduce a looming prison sentence. But for Ava, who once believed she'd spend her life by his side, he existed only as a distant memory, a chapter closed, a warning of how far greed and ego could lead one astray. On a bright spring afternoon, Ava returned to her childhood hometown of Glendale to cut the ribbon on a new Avenir Community Center. Standing by her side was James, flashing a proud smile as the crowd applauded. Sarah Johnson, beaming with tears of joy, captured the moment on her phone. As Ava spoke to the assembled audience, girls in need of mentors, mothers escaping abusive situations, and older women seeking a fresh start, she felt no trace of the fear or insecurity that once bound her. Instead, she stood tall and resolute, fully present in a life she chose and built with her own two hands. From shattered trust to unbreakable resolve, Ava had found her voice, her passion, and a partner who celebrated her every step of the way. And so, Ava Hamilton moved forward, leaving behind the ghosts of her past, committed to a future where every woman could rewrite her story with hope, dignity, and unyielding courage. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster journey of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimate redemption. Ava's story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there's always room for growth and second chances, especially when we choose to value our own worth. From shattered trust to a triumphant new beginning with James Hamilton, Ava showed that resilience is forged through courage and self-belief. If you found inspiration, drama, or even a few nail-biting twists in this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to bring you more riveting tales that feed the soul and fuel the imagination. Spread the word, and let Ava's legacy ignite a spark in others who might be facing their own storms. Stay tuned for our next story, because sometimes real life can be even more dramatic than fiction.